This episode of Nuff Said is brought to you by Tweaked Audio. To get awesome headphones, go to tweakedaudio.com and use the coupon code Southgate to get 30% off, free shipping, and a lifetime warranty. Or you can get there through the link on our website, southgatemediagroup.com.
In a world of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters, there is a team dedicated to protect humanity. There are humans, robots, time travelers, and inhumans. And they are ready to protect you. They are the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Enough said. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I am your host this week for episode 10. Not the penultimate episode, but
we're
the
close.
penultimate episode, yes. At the time of recording this, we are just waiting for the penultimate episode to start, but we are going to go into this episode, Season 7, Episode 10, Stolen. The team arrives back in 1983 where Nathaniel and Cora are hard at work building an army. Daisy is tasked with protecting Jia Yang. The others learn they'll need to face another supercharged enemy to stop Malik. Director this week is Gary A. Brown. Of course, Stanley and Jack Kirby gets those based on Marvel Comics by credits are Joss Whedon, Jed Whedon, and Marissa Tancharoen. Tancharoen. I'm not sure if we pronounce the O or the E first, because those are vowels, and no one knows how vowels work. So they're like magnets. They get our created bys. George Kitson and Mark Leitner get our teleplay by. Mark Bruner gets our story by credit as Mark Leinenbrunner. And also there's a Mark Leitner and a Mark Bruner. It's actually Mark Leinenbrunner. Okay. Double marks, double the fun. And then, of course, Mark Leitner, he's just a regular story editor. But do you know who oversees the story editing at all? It's our hardest working man in show business, George Kitson. All right. Okay, so we're back in the 80s after jumping through I guess it was we figured it's like a 1 hour time span. Just keep on jumping last episode. Back and back and back and back. And now we're back in 1983, just a short time after we left it. And as Max says, his nostalgia for the era is starting to fade. In fact, it's pretty much gone. We meet Roxy Glass again because she is now she's in the academy. Although it's an interesting thing because she's going to the academy, but she's also being trusted with this responsibility, and they call her agent, which is sort of an interest. I get the feeling it's like they said, Roxy, you are an agent, but we can't just field promote you to agent. You still have to go through the academy and learn the ropes.
Yeah, I mean, you can start working here as long as you promise to get your GED,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the basic she already has proven herself, but just on the paperwork it needs to say that she got her GED. So
yeah, and it's kind of funny because you imagine that she's a little annoyed because apparently Deke did not have the authorization that she thought he did, which is a little disappointing, obviously. Then we do cut to Nathaniel Malik, played by the great Thomas E. Sullivan, who is going on recruiting, and he recruits a gentleman by the name of John Garrett. And do you know who plays John Garrett?
I didn't recognize him. Should I?
Well, it's probably because he is played by James Paxton, and I believe the original Garrett was played by Bill Paxton.
That Bill Paxton, like from the HBO show Big Love?
They're only giving, I think they're only giving me the original.
Huh. I could see the resemblance, kind of.
Yeah, well, I mean, I believe that's what it was meant to be. Yeah, it was. It's his son as the young Garrett, which I thought was delightful. I didn't even know that's who he was because, I mean, he is an actor. He's making his own name for himself. But yes, the original Garrett was, I believe, it was played by Bill Paxton. Let me just look him up real quick. Aliens. I don't want the aliens one. I want the agents. But yeah. But anyway, so they do find Garrett
at a bar.
At a bar. Well, not just any bar.
Right. The Shield bar.
The Shield bar, and he gets recruited by Malik because apparently Malik can still. So yes, it was Bill Paxton. I have confirmed that Bill Paxton did play Garrett in the and it's now. I'm assuming James Paxton is his son, unless it's just an amazing coincidence that they operated on that structure. But they do bring him in to join the team, and he plays a very good young Garrett, which is one of the things I like about it. Is he really apes the Top Gun aesthetic that I think they hired the original Bill to produce. And yeah, it works out nicely. And of course, and it's this ironic thing because when Bill Paxton was Garrett, he went by the code name the Clairvoyant. And now, of course, Nathaniel is the Clairvoyant. And there's a great little misdirect in this because he says to young Garrett that they are chasing what the older Garrett was chasing at the end of his life. And then he says immortality, but that is apparently a term that is not being used in the same way. So in this sense,
I guess he means downloading the consciousness into some Chronicom computer and being able to replicate yourself as many times as you need.
Possibly, or just something else, something about winning and being then the Chronicom's taking over.
So it's not your immortality, but you're fighting for the Chronicom's immortality.
Well, something along those lines. I mean, it's an interesting question but it's double level because it's also about knowing what's going to happen in the future. And this idea that, interestingly enough, and we'll get to this at the end because that's the big surprise twist, but that the need to know the future outcome is central to what Malik is doing. But they do go, so the team is working out their plan. They take one of the Inhumans who has what is arguably an amazingly weird power, which is to literally create knives out of nothing, which, when you think about it, is kind of a Molecule Man level power, except I guess it's restricted to knives.
Right, so that's what makes me think. Is it just because he loves knives and he's terribly unimaginative? Or, he could have created, or can he not create moving parts, so he can't create a projectile firing gun? Or he can't create a sword. His creations need to be under 5 inches long.
That's the weird thing about superpowers, is they don't always follow logical scientific rules. Because arguably, if you can make a hard metal knife appear out of thin air, you have a power that is insanely cosmic in its ability.
Right, and can you only do it with your hands, or can you not make a knife or a blade appear randomly from around like your right bicep, right where the rope is?
Yeah. Well, and that's sort of the question. It's an interesting idea, and I think this is the idea of superpowers. Superpowers in a lot of structures are usually based off of a psychological awareness of how that power is going to manifest. And when we get back to when we look all the way back at Captain America, and the idea that if we give this power to a good man, he'll be a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Red Skull takes it, it's going to twist him into the monster he truly is. And so when you expand that out, and not everyone is going to be a hero or a villain, but everyone's going to have their own mental hangups and limitations. And that is something we touched on last week with Yo-Yo. Or not last week, but the week before with Yo-Yo. That she didn't have to always return to the same spot. And in her own way, that was her own mental limitation. That someone traversing that distance in that short of a time doesn't make sense. But if she would quantumly snap forward and snap back, that would make sense to her. And then when she accepts the fact that she can just move rapidly, essentially tap into the speed force, as it were, and move quickly, suddenly it's a different power set. It's a different structure to her powers. And, I'm reminded of this idea that, and speaking of the Molecule Man, which we just mentioned, when he first comes into power, immediately because his first battle is the Fantastic Four, and Reed Richards immediately notices he can affect organic matter. And essentially, he doesn't know why, but he knows that's what it is. And he makes this brilliant little trick to confuse him so that they can, disorient him and then, punch him. Because at that time, and also at that time, his powers were tied to a focus, a rod. So he couldn't use his powers without this rod. His powers couldn't affect organic matter. Years and years later, you get to this point where Dr. Doom, working with the Molecule Man, helps him to understand, actually, no, you don't need the rod. The power is nearly infinite. And, you can control all matter and energy. It's not just these things. And this is because he needs Molecule Man to unlock his powers so that, of course, Dr. Doom can try and steal it, which, as you might imagine, doesn't work out well for Dr. Doom. But anyway, long story short, this is this idea that superpowers are a mental construct, and essentially they are a scientific way that lets you access these powers that then, if you can open your mind in a certain way, you can have much more power. And that, of course, is the entire idea behind the sorcerers and the magicians of the Marvel Universe, that all you actually really have to do to be insanely powerful is be open to the fact that there are all of these energies all around you, and then follow the rules to access them and open them. So it's an interesting thing, and it's an interesting structure within superpowers in general. And, of course, that is also the interesting thing because, of course, along those same lines, what Nathaniel's entire process is he is stealing these powers from the superhumans. They don't lose their powers, though, and I think that's the most interesting aspect of it, is they don't lose their powers. They become weakened, they become sick, but they still have all their powers.
Right, but if they're not tended to, they will die from the impact of the procedure, right?
Well, yeah, that's a whole thing with Gordon, because I'm really hoping Gordon isn't dead. Because it was such a useless death for Gordon.
It really was!
Because literally, Max Coulson is saying, I'm going to bust this out of here, and it's going to be cool. Because, And I was, partly because I had to do the rewatch. I'm probably, does he have a problem opening it? Is there an issue with it? No, he doesn't even get, freaking, Gordon doesn't even give him the chance. He says, no, I have to do this to prove it. Now, maybe he's just knocked out. Maybe he was just exhausted by it, which I can buy. I can buy the idea that he was just exhausted by it, and he's not dead, and I don't think they said he was dead, because although we get that scene when Mac comes in to says, "Where's Gordon?" and Coulson just shakes his head,
right?
But he doesn't say anything, so it's like, oh, you're leaving that out there, Coulson. You're leaving it out there.
What got me was Coulson knows he's expendable. He can always 3D print up another LMD. But this guy wasn't, and this was his only life, his only chance at consciousness. So that was kind of, but what I did appreciate was, if I was in his shoes, I would have went back and busted the doors just to see if I could. But then, if you could, then then that sacrifice was completely useless, and you'd feel even worse. So might as well let the guy have the effect of his sacrifice, and say, all right, that's it. Let me let the guy have this one and let it be.
Well, Coulson's not going to be petty like that.
Right.
Assume it was off screen.
Well, no, it might not even.
You see that? I could have gotten this out of here.
Well, no, it could have been more self-preservation too, just so he doesn't feel bad, knowing that that if he had acted sooner, maybe the guy wouldn't have died. Instead of talking up a storm about how cool it's going to be, he should have just done it.
Yeah, well, that's true too. That's the thing, and because I could get that they were pretty heavy doors. I could get that he might not have been able to easily get out of that, but then again, he might have been give him a minute. And
to your point about how the idea of superpowers work, that room was designed to prevent superhumans or inhumans from using them. So whatever methodology they're using, it might not apply to LMDs because they're not inhumans; they're just robots. Whatever dampening field there is, or whatever it is that the doors are made of, I bet you he might have been able to break out of it.
Well, yeah, and if nothing else, he probably could have gone over to the rock side of the wall and just busted down that. That's the thing. It's I don't have to go through the door. Heck, if nothing else, if there's a window in here, I can jump to the window and smash out the window. Because I could probably jump real high too, It's like convenience versus what's actually what we need to do. But But anyway, getting a little back to things. So Gordon and Jiaying jump to the lighthouse after Nathaniel has taken over stuff, and there is this idea that they're going to go back and attack Nathaniel, and of course, this is how Gordon gets his himself captured. And again, it's sort of this weird thing because, of course, it is this idea of, in 94% of the times, that's what they did, because sort of like Doctor Strange at the end of Endgame, where he's looking at all the possible different universes. This is the one that works. But here they're saying, well, in all of the universes, this is the most likely thing to do. Which means that there are other universes where they didn't do that. And it's sort of these ideas of these split-off timelines that, because, of course, when we get to the end, and a little spoilers here for the end, there is this thing about how in every universe where they don't achieve what they're looking for, it's because they're thwarted by Fitz. Which is an interesting thing to say, given everything else we say in this, because earlier in the episode...
he's not dead.
Well, that is what apparently the Chronicoms think. And that's the question that's before us, because within this structure, Fitz and Simmons... Yeah, Gemma Simmons doesn't know what happened.
You kind of get the sense that maybe she does, and she's not allowing it to cross the liminal barrier into her conscious mind.
Well, yeah,
but
she's got a robot to do that.
Well, not just that, but I think maybe it has already escaped, and she's pretending like it hasn't. And like part of her subconscious is seeking out a conversation that will force the issue to come to light so she doesn't have to be alone and being responsible for letting it come to light. Some weird, psychological things going on there, but I think like deep down inside, she knows something is trying to bubble up to the surface, and even the implant can't hold it back any longer because of the little lapse she took.
Yeah, but to that end, I gotta say that Daisy's just way out of line. Just it's like no, because it's like telephone, telegraph, Daisy here. It's like we're not supposed to talk about it. No data from that time can come to me. And Daisy just out and out says it. And it's like, dear God, woman,
But at the same time, I can see her perspective. Like, that person who existed without the implant seemed like a different person. It seemed like the old Gemma. So her loyalties, could be pulling at her heartstrings and saying, hey, am I being disloyal to my friend in favor of this new person that is pretending to be my friend? Is there something going on? Maybe I should be paying attention to it, because like the emotional reaction she had in that moment was really, really telling. And I thought Daisy was going to point to the fact that it looked like Gemma felt guilt. Like she was burdened by a tremendous mountain of guilt. Not just that she was devastated. And I found it interesting that she chose to use the word devastated instead of guilty. I don't know if she was trying to spare her feelings or if the writers were trying to deflect our opinion away from the fact that it looked like she was feeling guilty to make it more about that she was devastated.
My honest opinion is no. I think Daisy is wrong. And she should not be digging this hole.
I can see your point, though.
No, but that's the thing.
Because, with the benefit of knowing what the real situation, but having the benefit of knowing what the real situation is, you can't force the implications of that on a person who doesn't know the full story, and she's just reacting to, hey, is my friend in trouble? I know I'm not supposed to say anything, but am I?
Okay. No, I'm going to disagree with you very vehemently on this because she doesn't know the situation.
Right.
She is interpreting a situation based on what she is reading from the situation, but she's not. She's not a telepath. She's not a psychic. She doesn't know all of the stories that are going on in there. We don't know. So, as an example, as a real obvious example, the entire reason why she realized how bad of an idea this was is because she knew that as soon as Daisy, she's not Sky anymore, Daisy, as soon as Daisy knows that something isn't exactly what she thinks it is, Daisy's gonna pull at the dang thread. She's not gonna let it go. And that is a problem because, that's why she's mad, because she's like, she's going to make me remember. She's going to open up these doors. These doors are going to be blasted wide open, and then the Chronicoms are going to be able to find what I don't want them to find. And whatever that is. Because I myself don't think that Fitz is dead. And that's sort of the point in this. I get the feeling that everyone's making these assumptions, and everyone is wrong. And that, along those same lines, goes to this idea that I get the feeling that, even that pulling the device out of Simmons might have been part of the plan.
Whose plan?
Fitz's plan.
So then by that extension of that logic, then she's following the plan too, Daisy is, no?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just that she doesn't know she's following the plan.
Yeah, I know.
She doesn't know.
It's like I can see your point that might be foolhardy, but I can't fault her for her allegiance to her loyalties to her friend.
Yeah. No, and I get that too, and that's the thing. But it's sort of this. It's sort of the. So, as an example, let me give you an example on this. When Mac goes to call Yo-Yo, he doesn't even get to call her. She just shows up, because she moved that fast, because she made a choice not to wait. And maybe she always would have made that choice not to wait, but it's an interesting idea in it, just that oh yeah, she made a choice. And in all of these situations, there's always these choices to be made. And, arguably this timeline can see all the choices as they're being made. But the fact of the matter is clearly there are a lot of timelines where they fail. Because that's the thing. If there was only one possibility where they failed, I don't think they would care. It's the fact that these timelines propagate as they keep on happening because there is a factor outside of our control, which also suggests that whatever happened in that time loop probably was safe, but that, and again, like I say, I get the feeling that Simmons was upset not because she saw what it was in the time loop, but because she understood that information that was not supposed to be in time was going to travel out via Daisy. That's what I think. That, yes, here it's safe for me to say this is the way to fix it, but first off, we have to reboot it so this data doesn't come back with me. But even in that situation, you're going to have this knowledge, and I can't tell you to forget this knowledge. I can't make you forget this knowledge. So, anyway, it's very interesting on all of that. Jiaying does find out that Daisy is her daughter, though they have a very interesting and complex conversation before that. And I like Sousa. Man, we're doing Agent Carter over on Full Stream Ahead right now, and I am so loving everything they've done with Sousa. And I gotta say this, Sousa bulked up a lot.
Oh yeah.
Sousa is walking in like Chris Evans right now, which is why I think Marvel basically says, Sousa, you got more to do. I don't think Sousa is meant to be, which is something's coming next. I think Sousa's a part of that because Disney's not going to pay for that trainer to get said no. We want him big. We want him Lou Ferrigno big by the end of this. We want him. We want him to be able to put on some spandex and go punch some people. And Sousa was more than happy to do it too. So I get the feeling there is going to be stuff coming after this, and Sousa will be a part of that, and that excites me.
Yeah, it seems like he'd be a perfect candidate to replace Nick Fury if ever it got to that point. And if you look at his face and like a little bit of gray on the side of his temples, he kind of fits the bill for that old comic book version of Nick Fury from back in the day.
Oh yeah, that's a definite thing. I'm actually thinking they're going to put him in the Time Variance Authority because we know that's what we know is coming. And like, if this does not lead to a Time Variance Authority, I don't know what does. And the fact that he is a man out of time to start with makes him a prime candidate for the Time Variance Authority. And so I love that. But it is the Daisy and Jiaying dynamic is really interesting in this episode because it is Daisy. First off, she doesn't want to reveal to Jiaying what the future is, and of course, for Sousa, it's like, listen, this is a chance to talk, and it basically says the timeline is gone. There is no timeline that you're preserving. Nothing. In fact, Daisy even calls that out when she makes the point that the reason her mother went and did that humanitarian work where she met her father was specifically because of her daughter's death, Cora's death, that suggests that in this timeline, there's no way for Daisy to come into existence. And that's what makes this timeline so odd, because there is clearly a paradox, but of course this is the time travel rules established in the MCU, which is that when you go back in time, you can't change your future. The problem is that the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. don't have that GPS. They can go back in time, but we don't know that they can return to the present. We don't know that there's a method for them to do that. Although arguably, since the technology was developed by Tony Stark, they probably could get themselves back to where they're going to be. But I actually get the feeling there's going to be sort of maybe an end story where it's like no, this is the multiverse, and there's a million timelines, and you can go to any one you want. And maybe that's why it ends the way it does, because maybe people decide to go to different timelines. You know, anything's possible. We'll have to see where it goes. But Jiaying does come to understand who Daisy is to her,
and who she turns into, who Jiaying herself turns into in the future.
But it's a weird thing, because he says, that who snaps your spine, nothing but dear old, and then of course, Daisy does the vibro punch. And one thing I thought was neat was, Nathaniel makes the point that he's had the powers longer than she has, which is technically true, because he got him in 1976 and now it's 1983. But he's only had him like maybe a couple years longer, because this is season 7. So,
and it certainly seems like he's surprised by the level of power that Daisy's able to display when she's properly motivated at the end there.
Yeah.
So maybe there's a level to these powers that he doesn't understand yet. He thinks he's had it for longer, but he hasn't had the experience of being a young child growing. Or when did Daisy get her powers? Did she get them as a child?
No, she got them as an adult. She got them as an adult, I think, later in... I think it has to be in season 2, actually, she gets her powers. Because it's after the Winter Soldier break. Because it's after they bring Coulson back and he starts... Because it's after they realize they have to go find the ancient Inhuman city that she gets exposed to the Terrigenesis, and I believe his name was Britt dies. I can't remember if the actor's name was Britt or the character's name was Britt, but that was the first tall, shaved head, handsome African American character that people swooned over. That's a running theme in all of these stories you may find, is that there's always a tall, handsome African American character with a shaved head that everyone thinks is pretty cool, which is good. We should have some standardized square jaw people of color. I think that's a great idea. Should always be that one guy who's just ultra cool in the stories. Although Mac's more the dad version of it,
Yeah. Yeah.
This was he was the young guy, Mac's the dad guy, Gotta have that, that maiden, mother, and crone kind of character dynamic. Nick Fury is the crone version. Still hot. A lot of people like Nick Fury, don't get me wrong, but, he's the older version. So, you got that. I want to say the character's name was Benji, was it? I'm forgetting his name. I have to go back to season 1 to see what his name was. But, yeah, so there's lots of things that are out there. It's all very exciting. But Jiaying, quote-unquote, dies in this.
Yeah, what did you think of that scene with her? What is her power? Does she just drain the life force out of people? What is that thing that she did? She can
drain the life force out of people and restore her own power.
So why didn't she just do it faster? Or it felt like... I mean,
that's the thing.
It felt like back in the day. It felt like it was 1983, and Hulk Hogan had George the Animal Steel in a headlock, and he does those little elbows and does 3 of them in a row to break the headlock and get out of it. That's how silly and ridiculous it seemed.
Well, and
then to couple that with moments later, he quickly snaps her neck. What was she doing? It just seemed like such a silly thing to do to not, I don't know. It seemed a little...
they have to... I mean, physically, I guess he could overpower her in that situation, and he has the strength of will, as it were, to break her free. He has inhuman powers too. But the actual thing I'm going to say is I don't think she's actually dead. Because I think Jiaying's power isn't that she dies.
Huh.
First off, she's clearly an energy vampire.
Right.
And that was sort of what the problem was when she turns evil in the original storyline, is basically she is literally dissected. And Whitehall uses her powers to return himself to health. And then basically buries all the parts of her. then Calvin Johnson, later Calvin Zabo, digs her up and puts her back together like a Frankenstein's monster. And then essentially she becomes angry and mad about all these things that have stolen from her, and then starts to essentially, she used to feel bad when she would have to take power because she's actually lived a very, very, very long time. And it was sort of this thing that people would sacrifice themselves for the good of the community, that someone would give themselves up so that she could live, because they felt that the cultural knowledge she carried with her was too important to lose. It's an interesting parallel to Coulson, this idea that everyone keeps bringing Coulson back, even though maybe Coulson would rather not be brought back. And I think, but after what happened with Whitehall, she stopped feeling bad about taking lives to survive, because then it became a wartime situation. So it'll be interesting if she comes back after this, if there's that same change, now that the real death has occurred.
Right.
She brings herself back, if there's going to be a negativity, and if Sky has to bring her back, or whatever happens next. So we'll see that. It's telling that it's May who says Xiang is dead, not Daisy, because I think Daisy will know that something more is going on. In fact, I wonder if Daisy's going to seek out Kelvin, since Kelvin's the last guy who brought her back. So it'll be neat if we get what's his name? He was on Twin Peaks. Blanking on his name right now. But he plays Kelvin Zabo. Do you ever watch Twin Peaks?
I never have.
Okay, yes. So, 1 second. He was also in Dune.
Oh, as the Muad'Dib? The Muad'Dib, the main character. Yeah.
Yeah, they're giving me the character's name, not his actor's name.
Right, no, but he's called the mystical
Cooper.
name. The mystical name that they called the person who held those powers, the Muad'Dib.
Yeah, but there you go. Dale Cooper, played by Kyle MacLachlan.
Right.
Kyle MacLachlan, who is awesome.
Yeah, he was also in.
We'll see if Kyle shows up this episode tonight, so it'll be interesting.
Huh.
All right. Yes, but anyway, so that's a lot that happens this episode, and I think it's a very interesting episode. It is the penultimate episode tonight. Take a drink, everyone.
Is it, or is it the penultimate?
No, tonight is the penultimate.
Oh, is it?
Next week. Yeah. Next week
right.
is the
Right. Gotcha.
Series finale.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
So I'm hoping to gosh they started 9 instead of 10 next week. They make me stay up till midnight trying to live tweet this. And I'll be like, dudes, come on, man! You know how many beers I've already drunk? Have some mercy. But anyway, any final thoughts on tonight's episode, Mozzie?
I think we got to it. The only thing is just kind of like a side note. I think Sousa and Daisy are adorable.
I'm sorry, what?
Sousa and Daisy, I think they're adorable. And the fact that Yo-Yo caught on and was sort of like, yeah, okay, I'm not going to push the issue, but you could have your little bit. I know what's going on.
But, within that entire concept, that all happened in Daisy's timeline, not in Sousa's. So Daisy knows how Sousa feels, but Sousa doesn't know that he's actually confessed it to Daisy.
Right.
It's an interesting kind of a good place paradox. It's like she has knowledge that Sousa doesn't, and is Sousa the person that she had that situation with when they have not been in that situation yet? So.
Right, but she comes back and kisses him, and neither one could care either way, so it's all good. I think.
Well, so there you go. Yeah, honestly, I think they're a cute couple. So
yeah.
And hey, if it gives us Sousa and Daisy in the next thing that comes next, I'm all down with that, because I do like Chloe Bennet. Chloe Bennet is a lovely actress and
quite talented.
Quite talented, and let me get Sousa and. because he's got that G and a J next to each other. How am I supposed to pronounce that? Enver Gyokev.
Oh, wow.
Gyokev, yeah. That's why we call you Sousa, okay? And just so you understand, that's why we call you Sousa. But yeah, I would love to see them in whatever the next thing is. But we'll see what that is. Okay, Mozz, in the meantime, if people wanted to talk to you about anything, how could they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And I realized I did that too early because you know what we have to talk about first?
Tweaked Audio?
Exactly, Tweaked Audio, the amazing
sound forgot.
That all of our listeners are already listening to this podcast on, that amazing high-quality Tweaked Audio. Though if you're not listening on Tweaked Audio headsets right now, maybe you should be. Go over to tweakedaudio.com and check those guys out because they have some amazing devices that will really shock and amaze you, and also be not a pain on your pocketbook, which is a nice thing. It's very rare that you get quality and cheapness in the same package, but they're there to help you out with that. And speaking of things that are cool all in one package, why don't you go over to hunterkiller.com, help out Michelle Gray, solve some cold cases. It's like getting a escape room delivered to your house once a month, and it is well worth the investment if you have people that you like to solve things with, or if you just like to solve things all by yourself because you're just that smart.
Yeah, so and if you love watching Cold Case Files, if you find yourself binging that, hey, why don't you join in on the fun?
And do it yourself for once. Exactly. And then, of course, you can always go down to our show notes, find that Amazon link, go click on that, and then just go to Amazon and buy whatever the heck you want. Don't listen to me. Buy what you want. But if you are interested in something that interesting you can buy on Amazon, that's also not too expensive. Check out Pod Life, the book. The book put out by the Southgate Media Network that, tells the story of us podcasters. Each chapter is written by an individual podcaster who had a story to tell. And these are their stories. All right. In the meantime, if you'd like to write to me in an old-fashioned email way, the way our Mozz and Poz once did, do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. Of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet tonight the penultimate episode, Take a Drink, of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's right there in the middle for what, Mozz?
For quality. Bing!
Thank you, Mozz. All right, dear listeners, you have come through one more time to the end of this episode. You've seen heroes, you've seen villains, you've seen them rise and fall. And at the end of the day, what more is there to say? But enough said.
Enough said.